Hey all, I had an idea to do this podcast on a recent Facebook thread that I was participating in. It's going to be about Toradol, IVIM, or what the hell, both at the same time. Um, so I'm going to talk about two things. One, the ceiling effect of Toradol, as well as its linear kinetics. So going with the ceiling effect, and before I get started, there's a lot of smart people out there that are way, way more versed in pharmacokinetics than I am. So please feel free to speak up, add in, correct me. Um, but I think this is pretty accurate. So first I'll talk about the ceiling effect of Toradol. There's been quite a few studies that have found that there's an amount that you can give of Toradol at which there's no further analgesic effect. And back in the old days, we used to give quite a bit, 30 milligrams IV, 60 milligrams IM, etc. Some people were even giving, as I spoke at the beginning, 30 milligrams IV, and at the same time giving 30 milligrams IV, at the same time giving another 30 milligrams IM. Their thought process was the IV will start working fast, and then the IM will take longer to work, but will last longer, giving the patients longer lasting analgesia. And that simply isn't the case, as the studies have shown. So on to the ceiling effect. A bunch of different studies. Here's one, not a huge one, 240 patients that received 10, 15, or 30 milligrams of IV Toradol as a single dose. So what they found was there was absolutely no difference in pain scores between any of the groups. The 10, 15, or the 30 milligram group, the scores were exactly the same. No differences in rescue morphine. Obviously, if there's no difference in pain, you're not going to have any differences there. So also no clinically concerning changes in vital signs or adverse effects at any of those three doses. And then something from Rebel EM. I love Rebel EM. They come out with and review studies all the time, and they're always spot on. And I just posted the conclusions. High quality RDCT demonstrates analgesic effect or a ceiling effect. So what they found is that 10 milligrams appears to be the ceiling if you're giving it IV, and administration of any higher doses is unlikely to improve analgesic effects. And then they go on to say the standard that has been given in the past is 30 milligrams IV. So they didn't find any adverse effects with the higher dose, um, but there's no benefit. So if 10 milligrams has the same analgesic effect as 30, why are we giving 30? We really shouldn't. I tend to give 15 milligrams, which is just easier to give instead of trying to figure out 10. And then I dose it more often so it's available if needed. I haven't found that to be the case, so I found 15 to hold these patients just fine. And I agree with them that higher doses just hold a potential for increased harm or increased side effects, etc. So their bottom line, based on the best available literature, providers should switch to giving 10 milligrams for acute pain. And again, 10 milligrams is, 15 is just so easy just to give half a cc of a 30 milligram vial. So that's what I tend to do. And a little more on the ceiling effect on a few different studies. This one here, of course, talks about the ceiling effect and limited evidence to support higher doses. Again, 10 milligrams is the ceiling in terms of efficacy and bringing about the least amount of side effects. And Toradol, of course, comes in 15 milligrams, 30 milligrams, and 60 milligram vials. So it's just so much easier. We only have the 30s and 60s, so I just give half of a 30 milligram vial and makes it much easier. The next study, a double-blinded study, assessed the efficacy with severe cancer pain, three doses, doses of 10, 30 milligrams, and 90 milligrams. And again, this study revealed there's no difference in the analgesic effect, leaving this severe cancer pain. So the dose of 10 milligrams was just as effective, had fewer side effects than the 90 milligram dose. And then they go on to talk about more studies that basically conclude the same thing at various dosage ranges, and they've all found that the ceiling effect is 10 milligrams. No difference in pain. So let's talk about duration now. What I hear is, well, we give IM to increase the duration. So we'll give IB, so have it start to work fast, and then I'll give IM at the same time. It'll work slower and last longer, which isn't the case. Remember, Toradol is unusual in that it has linear kinetics. So the IV half-life in hours is 5.6. The IM half-life is 5.3. So basically, there's really no difference. The clearance IV is 0.030 and the clearance IM is 0.023. And I've posted the charts, and this is from both the FDA and the manufacturers. And then here's something from the manufacturers again, and the comparison of IV, IM, and oral pharmacokinetics are, they compare them, and basically they find that they're the same. The extent of bioavailability following administration of the oral IM forms are equal to that following an IV bolus. And it talks about the linear kinetics, and that's the key here is linear kinetics. So in adults, administration of a single dose, oral IM or IV, the clearance doesn't change. And it's almost 100% bioavailable as well. So what they say is that the pharmacokinetics are linear, which we talked about, and at the same dose, you're going to get the same clearance or the same duration. Here's an excerpt from the Manual of Anesthesia Practice. I put the link down below. And they talk about the dosing. And of course, they say one-time dosing, 30 or 60 IM or 30 IVIM Q6 up to 5 days. Of course, the max dose is 120 milligrams. The onset, IM/IV, 30 minutes. I see it come a little quicker than that, but that's what they say. But the point is that the onset is the same, whether it's given IV or IM. And the kinetics are the same, IV or IM, and the duration is 4 to 6 hours. Here's the actual write-up from the FDA talking about pharmacokinetics, and we've probably beat this horse quite a lot now. Talks about the linear kinetics, talks about the absorption, and basically, they say the same thing. IM IV is pretty much identical, and you're not going to get longer duration from the IM, so there's really no reason to give both at the same time. And here's from a study on Medline, and I put arrows up to the important parts. No statistical difference in speed of onset of analgesia between the Toradol groups and placebo. So the median times to the first analgesic from the drugs were IV 45 minutes, IM 34 minutes. And there's also a statistical difference between the Toradol and placebo, which of course we knew. And not any surprise, the pain relief was significantly better for the IV Toradol when compared with placebo, obviously. By 6 hours, 78% of the IV Toradol group and 95% of the IM Toradol group required further analgesia. So less patients at 6 hours in the IV group required further analgesia. And what the FDA concluded is that the Toradol failed on postoperative pain following major orthopedic surgery, meaning it failed alone. So they needed opioid supplementation. But the point here is that the IV administration has no advantages over the IM role with regard to efficacy or speed of onset because they're basically identical. And this is a slide from the manufacturers, again, beating a dead horse, which I'm good at. They recommend 10 milligram doses, and this is a small study. And the peak effects were almost identical. The half-lives are almost identical. You can see them here. IV half-life 5.09 hours, IM half-life 4.99. So this is dogma, and I used to do it as well. And I had a CRNA way back when show me. It may have been in school, I don't remember, but you give 30 IV, 30 IM, and then you get the quick onset, the long duration. And it wasn't till quite a number of years later, after using it for so many years, I had another CRNA say, "Hey, you realize this is linear kinetics and it doesn't work that way." And I'm like, what are you saying there? Because this is dogma. I've done it for years. And I checked into it, and he was right. So I changed my practice. Number one, the ceiling effect. There's just no reason to give these whopping doses. You just increase the possible harm as well as side effects. So I tend to give 15 milligrams, and I'll order it either Q3 or Q4 hours, and the patients do just fine on it. There's no reason to use IM if you have an IV. None. You're just causing the patient pain and soreness. And then number two, duration and onset. There's no difference between IV and IM. And I know a lot of people think, well, you get quick onset from the IV and longer duration, but as all the studies show, as well as the FDA and the manufacturers, and we can all understand pharmacokinetics, it's just simply not true. With linear kinetics, it doesn't happen. So you're just flogging the kidneys for no reason and not really doing anything extra. And that's it for this podcast. I hope you guys enjoy it, and subscribe on the YouTube channel. I would definitely appreciate it. And y'all have a great day.